If you're interested in trying out Valorant in 2025, the first thing I'm going to advise is maybe you should save your mental and not give it a go, but if you still insist, then this guide is 100% for you. I've made one before and even cracked the exact same jokes, because while Valorant can be amazing at times, it also does have its own downsides that we'll talk about in this video. Let's start with the aim and movement of Valorant. Now, there are a ton of guides that go into very complex and nuanced designs in both these topics, but there's only a few fundamentals that I actually believe you need to know in order to get the hold of those basics and start improving really quick. First thing is, of course, customize your crosshair. The default with all the lines going all over the place and movement error is definitely too cluttered, and you don't want something like that. However, when it comes to the specific style of crosshair, don't listen to anyone. No crosshair is actually aimbot or better than the other. Something too bulky, of course, is not ideal because it can cover the enemies, especially at a great range. However, for the most part, there's a ton of different codes online that you can sort of play with and just go with whatever you like, and even switch it up from time to time to test things out. The color of crosshair is definitely personal dependent, and to be honest, I sometimes change the color of my crosshair depending on the map I'm playing. Let's say I like green, a map like Fracture has a lot of green and it kind of makes it blend in, and I'm definitely not the only one to do that. Valorant has a great amount of customization when it comes to the crosshair, and it's so easy to save presets and switch on the fly. So in my opinion, kind of have fun with it and see what you jive with. On the flip side, something you can't have as much fun with and sort of do whatever you'd like to is your sensitivity. For a lot of games, sensitivity is a personal preference, as there's a lot of high sensitivity gamers. Even myself, I like flicking. I've played COD, I've played Overwatch, and for those games, I absolutely love having higher sense and sort of just jumping all over the place. But with Valorant, even if you think you're just a high sense gamer, it's absolutely not worth having high sensitivity and slowly over time lower it. Because when I started playing Valorant, I used to run like 1600 DPI, 0.3 something, and I thought I was just cool with it, and that's just what I like to play. But over time, what I started to do is slowly lower it, and I lowered it a lot. I'm now at 0.24 at 800 DPI. So I've cut the sensitivity back a ton. And this is actually something to do with Valorant's fundamental gameplay. It's just that the way high sensitivity can improve gameplay in certain games literally nerfs you in Valorant, because any amount of high sense advantage, let's say needing to flick at a far range in a quicker motion, literally puts you at a disadvantage for 99% of how Valorant's gameplay ends up panning out. With Valorant, you want to continue to lower your sense until you're able to, turn around in a good enough motion, but just enough to turn around, because anything after that, it's about training muscle memory to make micro adjustments, which just leads perfectly into the biggest point ever. And you'll hear it as a broken record from any channel trying to give you tips and tricks, which is just crosshair placement. Fundamentally, crosshair placement can only be trained with time, eventually making it a habit as well as game knowledge. Essentially, what you got to do is make sure that crosshair is lined up at head level, so when the enemy peeks, they're just running into your crosshair and you're just clicking. It's like a little timing game. You're just clicking their head as they cross your crosshair, and all you've got to do is make micro adjustments, hence the low sensitivity, because with high sense, your micro adjustments will never be as precise, and it's very easy to overcompensate. What you want is to just have low sense, micro adjust, and work on that crosshair placement. Hop into a deathmatch, and I want you to not just hold W key like you're playing COD, but instead hold angles. Think, where's the enemy gonna peek from, and see how much you get it right. Then when they peek, kind of just work on lightly tracking, very micro adjustments, and keeping your aim calm, which is another crucial part about aiming. It's actually a term. Search it up on YouTube after you finish watching this video, called calm aim. And learning calm aim is actually very crucial in Valorant. And all it means is just don't panic. Don't panic spray. Don't panic shoot. Don't over panic and then end up shooting your crosshair one way or the other. When you see an enemy, don't let the pressure get to you. This will also come with practice. Just only focus on that crosshair lining up with that head. At first, you're going to be slow. Try to do it in a deathmatch. Play with the Guardian, a particular gun where you only want to be tapping. You can only tap the Guardian in order to try to get a headshot, and just go for headshots. Even if take your time to line up, even if it takes you so long that they turn around and kill you, all good. You're in a deathmatch, and just keep doing it, and eventually you will get quicker at there's the head, line up, shoot, and then you'll get more precise, you get quicker, you get more accurate. And the funny thing about calm aim and crosshair placement is you're gonna keep forgetting at the start. It literally can't be your subconscious. This has to be the foreground to the point where you're not paying attention to much else, but you just started Valorant. This is the first thing I want you to work on, is just consistently remind myself, wait, is my crosshair in the right position? Every time you're gonna peek an angle, is my crosshair in the right position? Every time you're holding an angle, is my crosshair in the right position? And then once you take a gunfight, did I have calm aim or did I panic? Did I have calm aim or did I panic? And remind yourself over and over and over, and eventually it'll be in your subconscious, and even then it will always slip your mind. But the difference between Iron and Radiant in a pretty linear line is how consistent one becomes at making the stuff we think consciously subconscious, and then just pulling them off with ease. Now that's aiming, but not particularly shooting, which is the next topic. The only shooting that I touched on lightly is tapping. I told you guys to grab a Guardian, hop into the deathmatch, and just work on your tapping because it lines up with helping you with your crosshair placement and consistency. However, of course, there's more to Valorant than just clicking once every second in order to try to line up a shot. There's tapping, there's burst firing, there's full-on spraying, there's crouch spraying, and it's time to break that down just a little bit for you. The easiest thing to touch on is spraying, because for the most part, spraying in Valorant sucks, and that's because unlike Counter-Strike or tons of other games, there's a randomized-esque section to the spray pattern. Outside of the first few bullets, consistently spraying in Valorant usually just means you're going to be inaccurate. So it means you have to be very conscious on when I'm gonna be spraying. Of course, moving and shooting in Valorant is quite a big no-no. It is a tactical shooter. You usually want to be stopped when shooting. So spraying alone is already inaccurate. If you're running and spraying, it's just a death sentence. There are very few cases where this can work out. For example, if you're holding a stinger and you're swinging really close into a corner, you can most likely run and spray and kill someone because it's very particular to the stinger and taking niche fights. But that's my exact point, is that there are particular guns and particular situations in which you spray and then maybe spray and run. So obviously, in general, it's not something you build habitually. Instead, it's actually something you have to think consciously in certain situations. Of course, outside of spraying, there's also burst firing. Now, burst firing is actually also kind of gun dependent. You're gonna wanna hop into the range and sort of test out each gun individually. Something like the Phantom, you spray the first few bullets and pull down lightly and then stop and then do it again and again. Of course, creating a probably 5-bullet burst fire, give or take. With the Vandal, you might wanna do it with like 3 bullets. Some guns like the Spectre is something that if you kind of swing straight into their chest, you can fully spray, and then at a medium distance, you're going to want to burst fire lightly in order to try to hit some head taps and get the kill. And you know, at a very far range, you don't even use it. And that's the biggest thing here. Valorant has quite a lot of guns, and the best way to learn it seriously is not a video. It's just to hop into the practice range, use that little bot that Riot gives you. You can increase the range of how far it goes or how close it is. Click each gun, it won't take very long. Try to tap it, try to spray it, try to burst fire it, and it's not going to take very long for you to understand how much damage each one does at a range and what they're good for. It's very simple. Then hop into a deathmatch, grab that Guardian, work on some taps, switch to the Phantom, increase the range, try to hit the head and pull down to the body, you know, learn the spray pattern, at least the start of the spray pattern for each individual gun, switch to the Stinger, try to run straight into them. Really do use and abuse deathmatch here to get a feel for each individual weapon, learn the initial on the practice range, follow it up by fighting other players in deathmatch, and you're gonna get the hang of it pretty quick. Just be conscious about each gun you're using and make mental notes of what's good and bad for them. Now, the next thing is that a lot of you coming from other FPSs, you're going to be hitting that crouch button every time you shoot. Like, nope, no, literally unbind crouch. It was the bane of my existence at the start of Valorant. You don't understand how much I would just crouch spray, and sometimes that stupid habit still makes its way in because it is so built into a lot of us FPS gamers. You do not want to be crouching in Valorant, like crouch shooting consistently in Valorant. It's just not the way crouch works. Crouch is to be used only intentionally, not automatically. So if you're finding yourself crouch spraying consistently, unbind it, because especially when you start, and for a majority of the ranks until you really hit the high ranks, a lot of people don't have amazing headshot accuracy. So a lot of times by crouching, you're ending up giving your head to the enemy player. If you're fighting a bronze, a silver, a gold, and you insta crouch, you're likely putting your head into their crosshair, because very few people have perfect crosshair placement at the mid to low ranks. So it is super important to not just be swinging a corner or swinging an angle crouch shooting. It's just a really bad habit, and if you can't break it, unbind the crouch key until you're used to just stand shooting, and then you can rebind crouch and start learning how to use it intentionally. As you get better at the game, it's going to be obvious when to utilize crouch, but just for some tips, basically you're going to be using crouch to get perfect head peeks or to change up the angle that you're shooting at. For example, if you're holding an angle using an operator plus chamber, it's very popular to shoot and then teleport out. Let's say you're holding the left side of an angle up top somewhere really high and you're aiming. Maybe in the next round, you'll hold the right side while crouching really low, so you're throwing off the enemies, right? They're planning to peek, expecting you to be up high. Kind of their crosshair will be on the higher level where you're crouched all the way in the corner, and then they're gonna have to flick you, putting them at a disadvantage. And again, you're gonna try to up and teleport out. So usually crouch is utilized, again, as you can see, intentionally. Similar to crouch, ADS is also used intentionally. Not every gun has ADS in Valorant, and outside the snipers of Valorant, being the Marshal, Outlaw, as well as the Operator, those three you're pretty much always ADSing. Pretty much every other gun you're not always ADSing. You only use it intentionally, basically for far ranges. Let's say the Vandal is a great rifle that you're almost never ADSing, but if you need to hold a far range angle, you can ADS and then just use it more like a Guardian where you're tapping, trying to get a nice little headshot at a greater distance, but you're not automatically ADSing. Similar to crouching, I know a lot of people built that habit to crouch and shoot. FPS game might build that habit to ADS and shoot. Not here, not in Valorant. Obviously, that was a big subsection for just aiming, but Valorant is almost all just aiming when it comes to fundamentals, so I hope you continue to work on it, because you will basically until you stop playing the game. But time to move on to movement. Movement is a pretty fun aspect of Valorant, which may sound surprising. It just sort of depends on your playstyle and what agent you use. You can of course run around, but when you do, you make a ton of noise. You can see that noise radius in your minimap. You can be heard quite far away. So for the most part, you're not just running left and right around the map. Unless you got to get somewhere really quick, for example, rotations, then yes, it makes sense to pull out your knife because you move quicker with your knife out and book it over there. But even then, you gotta stay very intentional because you are vulnerable while running because you're giving yourself away to the enemy. And if you're running at full speed with your knife out, you're even more vulnerable. On the flip side, the minute you hit that shift button, you cut noise and you slow it down. Now, what's really crazy is when you're shifting, you're still not accurate. I mentioned running and gunning previously. Shifting and gunning is also not accurate. For Valorant accuracy, you gotta make sure you're not moving at all. Wanna quickly mention that one more time. What you do to shift is to move around the map while cutting noise, meaning you are denying the enemy information. It's to move around very sneakily. This is where a lot of times the team can be annoying if you're trying to move around sneakily. One person randomly starts running and the position is compromised. So many different factors will come into moving in Valorant. So many factors, and a lot of it will have to come with time. At first, you're going to be kind of confused. Like, the spike is beeping. Do I have enough time to get there by shifting? Do I have to start running and give up my position? You might panic at times, etc. There's only so much you can get from a video. For the most part, what you want to be working on is just your positioning and slowly getting map and game knowledge. Try to shift walk and cut noise to get yourself into advantageous spots to get the jump on the enemy. Start trying to think about running and walking as information tools. Like, what information are you giving up? Is it purposeful? Do you need to give it up? By cutting noise and cutting information, how does it put you in an advantage? And thinking of it that way will help you improve way quicker. Over time, you're going to learn exactly about timings, when you definitely need to run because you're out of time, when you need to take certain plays because there's no other choice, etc., etc. On the flip side, something with movement you have to learn immediately is strafing, as it now ties movement and aiming together. It sort of puts the first half of this video into a complete subsection. Strafing is quite simple fundamentally. It's just so when you stop moving, you have accuracy, but on the flip side, you're also a sitting duck. You are easy to shoot. So how do I move to mess up the enemy's aim while making sure I stay accurate? Well, the answer is strafing. Luckily, the fundamentals are very easy. You move a little bit to the right, you tap or burst fire very lightly, move a little bit to the left, do it again. A little bit to the right, do it again. Eventually, you want to change it up. So instead of just left, right, go right and then right again to throw off your enemy. The biggest thing here is to make sure you're not moving at all when you're taking that burst fire or tap to make sure you're not inaccurate. Just move left, burst, move right, tap, move left, tap, move left again, tap. Keep it unpredictable. I actually mentioned this in my 2024 guide as well. I'm going to mention it again because that's how much this guy's the GOAT. But Royal G has a very in-depth strafing video. If I were to cover everything he covers here, this will be a feature-length movie. So we're not going to do that, but I recommend you watch it after you finish this video or a little bit later once you've finished digesting the basics. All right, now it's time for you to be the aggressor, okay? You understand how to aim, you're getting confident, and now you want to peek. You want to be the one going for that kill. You want to get kill hungry. I understand. All right. So there's a few different ways to peek. You can jiggle peek. This one is a very basic peek in which you're just jiggling left and right in and out of cover. You can change up the speed. Jiggle peeking doesn't have to be micro rapid speed. You can change up the speed to be really quick or a little bit slower. You know, you like peek, shoot, or you peek really quick just for information, or you peek and burst spray and then go back in. No matter what, all of it would be jiggle peeking. The speed doesn't exactly matter on its own. It's just about ducking in and out of cover. If you only want information, you can also do another peek called the jump peek. Take out your knife, you do a jump peek and curve back into cover. You're not peeking to shoot, you're only peeking for information in the most safe way possible. It's still better to use utility. If you have utility to gather information, do that. But you're in a situation, you need to gather information, you don't want to dedicate yourself to a fight, you can learn the jump peek. There's a lot of tutorials, but it's pretty simple once you get it once. You jump, you curve, you get information. If you do it really quick, you might not even be able to visually see the information, but it will update your map with if you saw an enemy. So it's information gathering. But let's say you still want to go for that kill. Okay, you can wide peek or swing really wide, which is just coming out really far, stopping, then shooting. Similar to the jiggle peek, how far you go is sporadic. You want to change it up. You might peek very wide and then shoot. Usually while wide peeking, you're throwing your enemy off, so they're trying to spray at you, they're whiffing. Once they start whiffing, you stop and shoot, because they have to recorrect their aim while you've just slowly been tracking their head on the crosshair side and are ready to stop and take that shot to get the elimination. The biggest thing you want to try and avoid is something called dry peeking. It's not a style of peeking, but instead it's when you peek with lack of information or utility. It means I'm just swinging out with no information and no real plan. I didn't throw out a flash or a recon dart or something to put me in an advantageous situation. When you're dry peeking, it is one of the riskiest ways to take a fight in Valorant. Sometimes, of course, you have to do it. I'm not saying you can never dry peek or something like that, but it's best avoided. You almost always, if you have utility, I don't have info, either gather info by jump peeking, or better yet, jump peek, get info, wait a little bit, throw out that flash, and then peek with an advantage fight in your hand. Just dry peeking is not ideal, and you want to try and avoid it. And by consistently thinking, okay, how do I avoid dry peeking this angle or this gunfight, you end up learning the game a lot quicker. Keep in mind, I will always tie back to something I said at the start, which is just being intentional about everything you do. Something else to do with peeking is actually the angle at which you're peeking at. So when you peek really close to the wall and you're trying to jump scare the enemy, it's not ideal, because when you're holding further away from the wall, it'll always put you in a more advantageous spot. If you peek very close to the wall, the enemy will see you before you get to see them. So by creating distance between you and the wall before peeking, you're putting yourself at a better position to make sure that you spot the enemy before they spot you, or at the very least, you both see each other at the very same time. This inherently also translates to the fact that they end up literally having less time to react when you're peeking further away from the wall, meaning they have to be even more precise to get you. Of course, this doesn't count if you want to be a little bit of a rat with a shotgun and you want to like jump into the enemy face and pop them with a shotgun. You do you. That works too. Now let me rapid fire a couple more things that are very important but could bore you to death if I drag on too much. Number one, look for isolation, meaning if you are peeking an angle, try to isolate. So don't wide peek it if you know it's a 1 versus 2, because then 2 people will be looking at you at the same time. Instead of jiggle peek, try to get 1 by isolating a 1v1 against the first opponent, and then after you get the first opponent, then maybe wide swing the last one with utility, if that makes sense. Try to always put in your position where you're not 1v5ing a billion other guns looking at you. You're trying to 1v1, isolate 1v1s over and over and over. On the flip side, the exact same situation, but it's you and a friend versus one person. You don't want to give up that advantage. That enemy is going to be looking for an isolation fight. So instead, you and your friend hold something called a crossfire, where you're in a position where if the enemy peeks, no matter what, you two are both going to be looking at that enemy. It's almost impossible for that enemy to isolate that fight. You reduce the chances of throwing your advantage this way. And at the very worst, even if one of you dies, because you held a crossfire, the other one gets the back of the enemy and is able to secure an easy win. Alright, now time for some game fundamentals, starting with the economy. There's a lot of numbers, and I know this confuses quite a lot of beginners. Luckily, at any moment, if you forget anything, press the buy menu, and there's this little circle that quite literally breaks down everything for you, how much credits you're going to get for each individual thing. On top of that, it'll show you the next round's minimum. So it'll literally tell you how much credits you'll get at bare minimum for the following round, unless of course you do anything within the credits reward, which will only add on top of your minimum on next round. But I'm going to make it even simpler for you. Round 1, go classic or light shield, or forego the light shield and buy abilities. Keep that free gun going. The classic is very versatile. You can tap slowly from pretty much a lot of ranges, or right click up close to absolutely demolish people, and it's literally a free gun. If you'd like, try the frenzy if you know it's a short range map or you guys are rushing real quick and you'd like to do a little bit of spraying and praying. My favorite is the ghost. You can do ghost and a couple of abilities. It's very versatile, double tapping from a pretty good distance to instantly get the kill, or spraying if you really need to up close. Or if you feel like an aim demon, go ahead and pick up the sheriff, foregoing both light shield and all your abilities, and only go for those head taps, implementing all the aim guide training that you've got up until now. I don't want to limit your gun choices. Go ahead, try the shorty, be a little bit of a rat in a corner and try to shotgun the enemies. It's kind of up to you, and I would like you to experiment since that's the most fun you'll have in Valorant, taking in all the new content that's quite literally fresh for you as a new player. But if you really want to know what's meta, usually going classic light shield, classic abilities, or going ghost with some abilities is mostly what people do, but still tons of sheriff players, tons of frenzy players, and yes, some very not fun shorty players as well. Okay, keeping the economy simple. If in round 1 your team wins, then you do something called a force buy, which is just using up all your credits to buy the best guns you can. If you popped off that round, it might be a rifle and a light shield, it might be a bulldog or a guardian, or it might just be a stinger or marshal. It doesn't matter. It's buying the best that you can with the money available since you won round 1. And the whole point of this is to put your entire team at the biggest advantage possible. Because you won the first round, you have more money than them, and you want to try and immediately snowball that momentum into winning a free second round. And if you win the second round, your third round is a bonus round. Let me explain. So you're playing round 2, you upgraded to a Spectre, you won the round. In your third round, don't upgrade again. Just hold on to your Spectre and try your best to win third round. It might be harder because now the enemies will have better guns since they saved up during the second round, but it doesn't matter because if you win third round, the snowball is insane. That's why we call it a bonus round. If you died during round 2, so you upgraded to a Spectre, you guys still won the round, but you died, don't buy in the third round. Just use your classic, use your abilities, try to scavenge for guns. It's still, you're playing that whole mentality of your third round is just a bonus round. It's okay, whatever happens, happens. We're just trying to win as a bonus. In the bonus round is a lot of fun. You employ very unique strategies, maybe being ratty with your team to try get a close-up classic kill and pick up the enemy's guns, because the score is 2-0, and as you enter the third round, the enemies are going to have full bot guns, and it is likely that they're going to win, but if you do win that bonus round, your entire team just scored an upgrade while still saving money, so that momentum grows greater. And if you lose, it's not a big deal. You still won 2-1. You're still winning the game so far. So it's a great position to be in all around. But you're not always going to win, so let's roll it back. You are on the losing side of this. It means in the second round, you can try to force buy and match the enemy, but for the most part, you just save. If you lost round 1, just save. Pretend it's another round 1. Go pistols again, keep it simple, save that money. And then you play second round almost like a bonus round. You've sort of accepted that you've already lost, but employ strategies that try to put you in an advantage. Be a little bit of a rat, play really close together with your team, try to surprise one enemy, so like 2v1 or 3v1 a single enemy to try to get their gun, because they'll have bots since they won, and you can try to shift the tables and win the second round. But for the most part, you want to make sure to save that money, because if you guys also force and then lose, then the lead for the enemy will only grow greater. What you want to do is hold on for the third round, which would be your first full buy round. Now, a full buy round is what we generally refer to in Valorant as the rifle rounds, which tend to be the Phantom or the Vandal plus one of the 3 shield options: light, regen shield, or full buy shield. Now, when it comes to the shield options themselves, they're all honestly great for their own reason. The light shield being the cheapest allows you to buy a rifle and a shield to protect yourself pretty quickly and efficiently, but of course you are more prone to being one shot and killed quicker since you quite literally have less shield. The regen shield can be something a little bit confusing as a new player. Essentially, it's the same as the light shield, but after you survive the fight, there is a little bit of a pool, which is like a backup shield that recharges the shield. So if you win a gunfight and lost your shield, once you're in cover for long enough, the shield will come back, and then the full heavy shield is just straight up the most amount of shield you can get in one go to protect yourself for the next available gunfight that's going to happen, no matter what. All 3 of them are good. All 3 of them have situations depending on the economy, the agent you're playing, etc. That's where Valorant goes from being checkers to chess, and it is fun to learn over time, but can definitely be too overwhelming. So for now, work on the basics of the economy, experiment with different guns, and just have fun. Because eventually there's a lot of nuance that I could cover, but it would just be overwhelming and would really reach outside the scope of this being a beginner's guide. The last tip I can really give on the economy is just work with your team here, meaning full buy and save together. That's it. It's that simple. Try to get all 5 of you to either buy together or save together so the team is jiving with one another. Of course, something that people will always ask is, okay, full buy rounds are often rifle rounds, meaning Vandal or Phantom. So which one should I do, the Vandal or the Phantom? This will always be asked forever, and to be honest, both are good. There is no correct answer. They're kind of map dependent and playstyle dependent. The Vandal and Phantom are both good guns that you should be using interchangeably and getting good at interchangeably. If you are a smokes player or you're trying to play sneaky, the Phantom, for example, doesn't have the bullet tracers that come out of the smoke, meaning it's a little bit sneakier. It is better at springing and burst firing, which is great for medium to short range. The Vandal is a one tap to the head no matter what, excelling at longer range, more calm one tap style aiming. Next thing we should kind of quickly touch on is Valorant maps. They continuously expand, and by the time you're watching this, depending when in 2025, it most likely there's a new map in Valorant. Like, they do keep adding maps, and learning them can be sort of overwhelming. Now, in the competitive side of things, meaning in ranked, there is a limited map pool, meaning not all the available maps are open to be played in ranked, and this is to make it quote unquote more accessible. However, if you're a new player and you're playing stuff like Swift Play, which a lot of you will be, all the maps are accessible, and to be honest, all good. Playing is definitely the best way to learn a map. If you want to study a map, go into a custom match and sort of analyze how it works. Your furthest left, your furthest right, and then the midsection, and then the connections. Draw like a little bit of a checkerboard, you know what I mean? Understand how the map connects vertically and horizontally, and over time it will make sense. Try different ways to rotate. Start from one site, rotate to the other side on both defenders and attacker side. You'll understand which way is the quickest, which way is the safest, and then you'll be able to employ these as you're actually playing the game, depending on the situation that you're put in. Okay, but Valorant is a tactical team shooter, meaning strategies are probably the most fun part about Valorant. So here's a few strategies you can try. The most default that a lot of people will do, you know, if it doesn't work out, make sure to change it up, which is just a full push. Let's say you're on the attacker side, you want to rush A site, you and your team will say, okay, we're going to all rush A site, and you quite literally all overwhelmingly push the site using your utility to try and secure the site. Once the spike is planted, you then secure your flanks and different angles and basically just play the defense. This is not about map control, this is about securing the objective only. Now, it's a risky play a lot of times because you have no map control or information, but still, sometimes it's very effective, especially when there's a team diff, meaning you're literally all just playing better than the enemy players are. You can also try a different strategy called a split push, meaning you, let's say, try to take A site by pushing main as well as mid. So you're trying to take more map control while still having an overall objective, which let's say in this case is A site. This is good because having more map control means if you need to bail and switch the plan up, you're able to, since you've also achieved more information by splitting your push. You're also able to clear more angles. Again, it's all information. In all regards, you are getting more information and able to pressure or adjust and adapt against the enemies in a much more efficient manner by splitting. There's also another strategy called defaulting, which basically means you're all holding the far lines. You can kind of split up, you're holding the back lines. You usually use defaulting if the enemies are very, very aggressive. You're finding out that, okay, we're trying to push or we're trying to split, but they keep pushing us instead. They're playing against us. Okay, switch up the roles, you default, you play more passively, and you're looking for picks. Depending on where those picks come from, you then adapt. So if you're all defaulting, you find 2 picks over on A site, then the defaults collapse, and then you all push and secure A site together. You can also try something like a fake. A fake is also very simple. 3 of you go towards A site, but stay back, not pushing where the barrier location would be. You want to cut noise and make sure that the enemies do not know that you exist there. Your other 2 teammates are over on B site and they're trying to fake the fact that they're pushing B site. Certain agents will do this a lot better. Agents like Yoru, who have a clone, which can make more footsteps and presence, as well as a TP, meaning he can help fake one site and then TP back to his teams. There's a lot of different agents with different util that will help secure or sort of convince the enemies you're pushing one site. And once you do, the enemies will start to rotate or put their focus on B site, and that's when the 2 players regroup with the other 3 and they push a hopefully less defended, more vulnerable opposing site. Okay, but that's all for attacking. On the flip side, let's say you're defending, you can rotate, you can lurk, you can flank. There's a couple different things you can do. Rotating is pretty simple. It's just rotating over to help secure the site that you believe the enemies are attacking. Of course, try not to fall for any fakes, and that is best achieved with information agents. If you believe people are pushing the site, don't just take it for granted as that's free information. You can use information gathering agents to confirm that it is a full push, either by spotting 4 or 5 enemies at once or by checking main as well as the opposing side, let's say mid. And if you see 3-2 or 2-2, it's most likely obvious that they are pushing that one site, and that's when a rotation comes in handy. You could rotate far, meaning you're just rotating in the safest way possible to help secure that site, or you could rotate in a quick manner that exposes you to, let's say, mid or more areas where the enemies are, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if the enemies are splitting, you might want to rotate quick to help defend that mid section. You might also want to do a lurk. A lurk is very important and is used strategically. I'll try to give you an example. Let's say, basic defense position, 1 is on A, you're the one holding mid, and then 3 are on B, something like that. We're 100% sure that the enemies are attacking B, meaning the last player on A goes to rotate around and defend B. You can be the lurk who approaches mid and maybe ends up becoming a flank. You can end up turning it into a flank, or you can just lurk mid. By lurking mid, that's what lurking is, and what you're doing is keeping pressure, meaning if the 4 of your teammates push back the enemies are going to be rotating and you're going to catch them off guard because you're holding pressure. You're literally sandwiching them. That's your entire purpose of a lurker: map control, map information, and getting picks that the enemies won't expect. You're sort of expecting them to come to you and you're being a little sneaky and grabbing those picks. Lurking is causing pressure. That's the point. If you're lurking, am I creating pressure? If I'm not, then you're not lurking correctly. If you're already lurking, it can turn into a flank. This means, you have to be a little strategic on it. You can, from a lurk, go into a flank if you believe that your team starts to lose, meaning the enemies are going to continue to commit to B. So you're going to try to get, again, a sneaky pick, but by pushing and flanking. It's all about decision making, which will come with time, and of course, sometimes a little bit of luck. All right, you have all this information, but something I never even touched on is, who are you playing? What agent should you play? And to be honest, there are a lot of specific guides on helping you find your agent. But I know it's gonna sound lame, but play them all. This is the fun part. You won't have them all unlocked. Valorant sort of takes the L on this. You can unlock them all for free through Kingdom credits, and it doesn't take too long. But pro tip, go into the practice range and you have access to all of them. Also, if you have the Xbox Game Pass, link your Riot account to it and you get all of the agents for free as well. So and you can use it in game, which is a huge W. But if you don't, again, practice range, play around with all the abilities. Each agent is very almost obvious in what what they do. Like, it doesn't take a genius, even as a new player. If you randomly select Cypher, see he has a camera and tripwires and cages, obviously it's a defensive agent, you know what I mean? Killjoy, you're throwing down a turret, you're throwing down traps, obviously a defensive agent. A character like Jett, who's literally dashing straight into the enemies, is obviously a duelist, someone who plays aggressive. The agents are pretty, I don't want to say fully self-explanatory. They do have a ton of complexities, but at least at a base base value, it's obvious to tell which agent does what, and you're eventually going to understand your playstyle. Are you someone who plays slower, more strategically, more defensively? You're going to end up with agents that help you with that. If you're someone who's no brain, all aim, likes to run it down, stuff like Jett, Phoenix, and other duelists are going to end up, you know, being the ones you enjoy. I would say don't spread yourself too thin, meaning don't play a ton of agents all over the place. It's you won't learn as fast, but pick a handful of different roles and sort of try to learn each agent as much as you can. Study those agents, search specific videos for the agents you like, and there's so much information out there from top tier players that'll explain how to utilize and abuse your abilities the best possible, literally the best possible way. I'm going to sort of speed run through one of the most important things, but it always bores everyone to death, so try not to click away. It's just the mental of Valorant. If you are losing too much or you feel you're not having fun and getting frustrated, take a step back. I know it's boring, just don't. Because the minute you're frustrated and you're not learning game after game, you're not going to improve. So it's kind of useless. It's still just a game. So make sure your mental's in the right place. If you feel you're on autopilot, take a step back, take a break. It's very, very, very important. Another thing that may affect your mental is the skin prices of this game. They are extremely expensive. Do not overindulge on skins. I think almost everyone ends up regretting it, since it still is a game and eventually you won't be playing it forever. I do tons of skin videos because it is fun. The community enjoys skins. It's just a part of the culture at this point. Choose a handful of guns you love. I have a ton of skin tier lists. Shout out to myself, I guess, where the community literally polls for the best skins. You can see some of the top selected by the community, see if you like them, and choose like one skin per gun that you love, like a melee, vandal, phantom, whatever you really love. Don't overindulge. Don't go crazy on your inventory. Don't have multiple skins per gun. It's a huge money sink. In my opinion, it's not worth it at all. But of course, it's your money. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the skins. Not a huge deal overall. And that's pretty much the best way I think I could summarize all the essential points of Valorant without diving into too much depth, because this game can become 5D chess very quick. This game has its own depth, and that depth goes pretty damn deep. But for now, enjoy the basics, because the most fun you'll have in this game is honestly being a new player. As a new player, it's the most amount of content that you'll ever have, exploring everything. Take it easy, enjoy the improvement process, and the minute it's not fun, it's still a game, so call it quits.